شاء الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم افتح علينا فتحا مبينا وارزقنا رزقا مباركا طيبا كريما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Good to see everyone. Jazakumullah khair for joining us tonight for this session on parenting. Actually, give me 1 second. Let me just close the door. So inshallah, we have a lot of material to cover tonight. Inshallah, sit back and inshallah, all I need is your attention, inshallah, and your ears on this very important topic, inshallah. There's a lot to cover, as we've seen before, and the subject of parenting. That the subject matter is complex. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of healing that is needed in it. There's not necessarily kind of one style, one methodology fits all, but there are fundamentals that we have gone over that really, brothers and sisters, work, with incredible outcomes with children. And our hope, inshallah, is for us to, help each other out in this endeavor, because there is no endeavor that is more important in our lives than this responsibility that Allah has given us as parents. And whatever we do with our children not only impacts our children, but will impact generations, future generations until the end of time. So the seeds that we plant today, think of them as planting the fruits, the plants, inshallah, for generations to come. And inshallah, we need to proceed with this infinite hope in our hearts, wallahi, boundless hope in Allah and trust in Allah, because the condition of the heart deeply impacts even how we parent. So inshallah, with that, give me a second, inshallah, to share the screen so that we can, inshallah, proceed with tonight's session, bi'idhnillah. Okay, 53. Let me just give me a second. Okay, so inshallah, one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is this, perhaps many of you have already been familiar with this, the whole subject of parenting styles, right? So the psychologists have looked at, the behaviors, the patterns that people parent with, and they categorize them into 4 clear categories. Now, before I go into these categories, I want you to be sincere and honest with yourself. You may not necessarily fit into one category. You might be a hybrid of categories, right? You might be displaying a certain pattern that fits into one of those categories, those clear, 4 categories, and at times perhaps displaying another, a pattern from another category. But rest assured that you're going to be exhibiting behaviors that definitely tilt towards one of those categories. So there is perhaps as I said, a greater tilt, more gravity towards one of those categories that you're going to be gravitating towards based on your personality and also based on how you've been brought up. So what are those 4 clear categories of parenting or parenting styles that people can be grouped into? Well, first, there's what's called the authoritarian. If you go down, there's what's called the permissive. And then the third is the uninvolved, and the best parenting style is what they call the authoritative. So let's inshallah break them down on this, on this scale. What you're seeing in front of you is, again, this breakdown, the 4 parenting styles based upon 2 scales or 2 metrics. So the number 1 metric that you can measure yourself with as a parent is what's called the demandingness scale, which is the horizontal scale or axis that you see in front of you, which measures what? How demanding are you of your children? What kind of level of expectations do you put on your children? Do you place high expectations of your children, which will put you on the right side of the scale? So you demand a lot out of your children in terms of school performance, in terms of how clean they are in the house, in terms of their level of responsibility in the house. You are a demanding parent. You can be low on that, less strict. So you don't demand much of your parents, so you'll be low on that scale. Again, the left side of the horizontal scale. The other scale is the vertical one, which measures your level of responsiveness, especially to the emotional needs of your children. So do you tend to be more responsive to your children, right? More engaged with your children, or less responsive to your children, so you're less warm with your children, so to speak. So based upon these two scales, you're going to be categorized in one of four quadrants. So let's look at first the right hand side, the authoritarian, because sadly speaking, most of the people coming from the East, from Muslim cultures, tend to be actually more authoritarian. If you really look at least based on my, involvement with so many families and having counseled so many, I've tended to see really that most Muslim parents tend to be, actually 1 second, 1 second. So I need to mute. Let me just do this quickly. Give me 1 second. I'm having a hard time here muting. I think I'm hearing people pray. So give me 1 second again. 1 second, inshallah. Mute all. Okay, we're good now. So inshallah, let's go back to the share. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll almost have to restart after the interruptions. Okay. So again, inshallah, if you look at the right, the bottom right quadrant says authoritarian. As I said, I've noticed that most Muslim parents tend to be authoritarian. What does authoritarian means? It means it's high in the level of demandingness and less on warmth. So that makes them more autocratic in their parenting style. They have very high expectations of their children. They tend to be very structured, very involved with their children, but they tend to be what? So those types of parents that really place a lot of demands on their children, and they're more of the style of I said so, so you have to do it. I'm the boss, and you're the servant here. They're emotionally distant. They tend not to be as involved emotionally with their children. They're not as present, as connected to their emotions. They're not really responsive to their needs. However, they place very high expectations and high demands on their children, and they tend to also place serious consequences on not upholding those expectations. So they tend to punish their children. Again, autocratic way of managing or raising the children. If you go on the bottom left, you'll see what is called an uninvolved parent. The uninvolved parent is someone who is low on both scales. They're neither placing high demands on their children. They don't place any expectations on their children. They're pretty much uninvolved in that regard. And they also tend to neglect their children. They're the types of parents who are, as an example, very busy with their work, and they say children are children, just let them be. So I'm not going to even bother with placing responsibilities on them, but I'm also not connected to them emotionally because their minds are somewhere else. These are the parents who place priorities on other things in life apart from their children. The third type is what's called permissive. So that's the upper left quadrant. Permissive. What is permissive? Permissive, as you see on the scales, they're actually not strict. So they don't place a lot of expectations on their children. They place very low expectations. They're not demanding of their children at all. They gave very few rules, but they're very attentive to their children emotionally. So they're present, but they essentially tell their children, you're the boss. I love you. I adore you. I listen to you, but you're the boss. No expectations, no demands. So what is the best parenting style? The best parenting style, what's called authoritative, not authoritarian. Authoritative. This is actually a very hard one to kind of cultivate, to learn, to train on, and to practice. Authoritarian is someone who is high on the demandingness scale, and also high on the responsiveness or the warmth scale. So these are the parents who place both high expectations on their children, who place clear rules for their children to follow and uphold, and they're going to hold them accountable to them, right? But they're not going to be the punishing parents. They're going to have clear consequences, but they're also going to be very present emotionally with their children. They're very assertive, but they're also very reciprocal. They're the types of parents who are going to sit with their children to discuss and talk about their behavior, to state the clear rules about those behaviors and the consequences of those behaviors. These are the parents who are going to be expressive with their children to say, tell me about how you feel today. Why did you do that, right? Those are the parents who are also going to be expressing their emotional connection, articulate their emotional connection with their child by stating that I'm grateful to you, by stating that I love you as a child and I'm here for you to support you. So again, they are high on the demandingness scale, on the strictness, but they're also high on the responsiveness or the warmth scale. So ask yourself this question as I pause here for a second: where do you fit in? Like me and my wife talk a lot about this, and we're constantly trying to adjust towards the authoritative because it's not easy to tilt towards that, brothers and sisters. And we carry our own weaknesses as parents, and we have the strengths and the weaknesses, depending on our own personalities. But it's important, brothers and sisters, for effective nurturing of our children to pay attention to that important quadrant, the authoritative. This is the most effective parenting style. Every other parenting style has serious consequences associated with it, as we'll discuss, inshallah, in the next slide. So bear with me as I switch. So the authoritarian, as we said, these are the parents that place strict rules, but they're unresponsive to their children. They're very demanding, but they're unresponsive. They're very, as I said, authoritarian and dictatorial in their style with their children. What are the associated negative outcomes that occur because of that parenting style? So what are the types of issues that you'll see present with children who are raised by authoritarian types of parents? So I listed some of them here. So the children who are raised by parents who tend to be authoritarian tend to have actually lower academic performance, lower self-esteem. What does it mean to say lower self-esteem? Self-esteem is actually the opinion that the child has about their own skills, about their own talent, about their own abilities. Do they think low about their own abilities, about their own talent, skills? Clearly, if the parent is constantly yelling at them, and they're punishing of these children whenever they fail, clearly these children are not going to associate themselves or think of themselves as being high on the scale of skills or on talent or on abilities. They're going to actually constantly question themselves. So they tend to do worse in school and to have lower self-esteem of themselves. They tend to actually not have effective or good social skills, because again, the way they learned in the house is that I have to just obey my master. I have to obey my parents. My parents are the bosses and I'm nothing, right? And if that's the case, they never learn how to articulate their own emotions, how to connect with others, how to have conversations, because they've never been given a chance to express their opinions, to have an input into anything. So they've always been shut down. And as a consequence of this, these children oftentimes grow up to be very poor in their social skills and to struggle with relationships. So think of the consequences of this on the children as they themselves become spouses and parents in the future. Many of them tend to have mental illnesses, actually. This is also a very significant outcome, brothers and sisters. Very serious negative outcome. They tend to have, depression, anxiety, severe distress, right? These are, again, serious consequences associated with authoritarian parenting style. Many of them have been found to, abuse drugs and alcohol, right? Again, an outcome of their internal struggles and their mental illness, right? That they start to resort to any escape from their reality, including the use of drugs and alcohol and delinquency, as you can imagine. So as you can see from this slide, this is a very unwanted parenting style, and the ones that pay for it are the children. The permissive, again, just to remind you, are those parents who don't place any rules or are not demanding of their children, and neither are they involved emotionally. So they tend to be they're very actually present with their children emotionally, but they say children are children. They're loving of their children, but they don't place any expectations on them. So what are the associated outcomes? What kind of patterns would you see with children who are raised with parents where the child feels that they're the boss, right? The child feels that they're the boss. These children tend to have very impulsive behavior. They tend to be very egocentric. What does that mean? They think that they are the center of the world. Why? Because the parent has always permitted them to do what they want to do. There are no expectations. There are no strict rules placed for them in the house. You go to bed whenever you want to go to bed. You wake up whenever you want to wake up. You do as you wish. You want to go with your friends, go with your friends, right? I want to do whatever makes you happy. Those types of parents who want to do everything that the child wants. Oh, you want a phone? I'm going to give you a phone. You want a toy? I'll buy you the toy as long as you're happy. These children think that they're the center of the world. Whatever they ask for, they get. So imagine how they're going to function in life, socially speaking, in the future when they get married, when they have friends. They're always going to be upset if their needs or their expectations are not fulfilled. So they tend to be egocentric. They tend to have poor social skills because, again, they think that there's a center of the world, and their relationships will always struggle. So again, this style of parenting is very destructive, again, to the children. The third is the neglectful parent. The neglectful parent is a parent, again, who elevated other priorities in life, no matter what it is, including the job or something else that is going on in their lives, above the child. So they neither place demands on their children, rules on their children, or expectations on their children, or follow up, nor are they involved with their children. They're very indifferent. They're, clicking, flipping channels on the television. The child is begging them to have a conversation, and they say, go to your mother, go to your father. I don't have time for you. They're not involved emotionally. They don't care, right? Because there's something else that is more important. What are the negative outcomes that are associated with this style of parenting? What kinds of things would you see with a child? Here's an example. Again, you'll see impulsive behaviors associated with children who are raised by parents who are neglectful, delinquency, drug or alcohol abuse, and something very serious, brothers and sisters, suicide. Why is that? Because this child is neglected emotionally. They don't know how to set boundaries for themselves because the parent wasn't there to set boundaries. They can do as they wish, as they want, and no child, brothers and sisters, can raise themselves. No child can grow up without boundaries. But also, if the parent is not fulfilling the emotional needs of the children, if this child feels unloved, unwanted, if they feel unworthy to even be given a time by the parent, what kind of a message is it embedding in that child's mind? You're not important. So on the one hand, they don't have boundaries in life, and nobody's even paying attention to hold them accountable to any boundaries. And they don't know any better, right? They're given the phone, they're given the free screen time. They can do anything they want to do. There is no parent who cares. But also when they have any emotional need, they're struggling in life, they're stressed out, they're sad, they have no one to go to. And the parent, bear in mind, the child wants the parent's attention more than anyone else in their lives. They want to make the parent happy, but the parent is the only one present in their lives to fulfill their emotional needs. So if they don't have anybody else to lean on emotionally, imagine 3, 4, 5-year-old, what do? They're broken completely. So many of the children, brothers and sisters, who are associated or grow up in a neglectful household can end up actually suffering not only mental illness, but also possibly committing suicide. The most effective, as we've said before, is the authoritative parenting style. And this is the parent who places strict expectations or strict rules and expectations upon their child because they want their children to succeed. They'll place those boundaries for them, and they'll hold the child accountable, but without getting upset, without yelling, without screaming. They're emotionally present for the child. They're supportive, they're loving, they're caring, they're grateful, but they're also, as I said, holding the child to high expectations. So this child will grow up with boundaries. They know what those boundaries are. They know what crossing those boundaries would entail for them. They know the consequences. And these parents are consistent with applying those consequences for crossing those boundaries. But this parent is not a tyrant. This parent is very supportive and loving. So what are the associated outcomes with this style of parenting for the child? This child for sure will do better in school. They'll have greater self-esteem because they've been getting feedback, positive feedback from the parent. This parent believes in them. This parent supports them. This parent is the type of parent who will say, I appreciate your effort. You're a good person. I appreciate how you do your best, that you're really caring towards your sibling. They give them that positive feedback. So this child will naturally feel good about themselves, feel good about their abilities. They're not going to have a negative opinion of themselves. They're going to have good social skills because guess what? Their parent had conversations with them. They made time for them. They helped this child develop the ability to listen to the parent talking, but also to be able to articulate how they feel, to articulate what they think in terms of solving problems in their lives. They've had this training early on, so they're going to be able to have those conversations with other people in their lives and have better connection with them. So they have better social skills. They're going to suffer from less mental illnesses in their lives and lower delinquency. So as you see right here, the consequences, the outcomes associated with this powerful style of parenting are extraordinary. So if we want our children to thrive, to do well in life, brothers and sisters, past our lives, when they've grown up, not only to do well academically, but also socially, to become really good husbands and wives, good parents, to live a life of gratification, of contentment, to live for a purpose bigger than themselves. We really have to train ourselves as parents and be humble about this, to try to train ourselves on how to become better, authoritative parents. And I would encourage couples to help each other out with this, because it's not easy if one parent is being authoritative in their parenting style, but the other is neglectful. It becomes very heavy a heavy burden for the parent. Or if one is authoritative and one is authoritarian, right? They kind of start canceling each other out. And then you have a mixed signal being sent to the child, right? The ideal situation here is to have both parents being authoritative. I want to talk about upbringing. This fits into the authoritative type of parenting. There's something called care for the child, or providing for the physical needs is what I meant by care. Providing for the physical needs of the child versus what's called in Arabic language, tarbiyah. Tarbiyah is a powerful concept in the Arabic language and in our Islamic tradition. I wanted to differentiate between what's called tarbiyah, which I translate as upbringing for the child, versus just providing for their physical needs under the word care. So again, providing food, drink, and clothes for the children, taking care of their appearance, making sure that they're just clean and they're well fed, is not upbringing. It's not nurturing the child, brothers and sisters. Sadly speaking, most parents, or many of the parents, limited the art of raising the child, of upbringing the child, to nothing but providing for their physical needs, including feeding their stomachs and ensuring that they're taken care of physically and that they have a shelter, a good place to sleep, right? They limit parenting to this. Allah did not give us this, make us custodians of this tremendous responsibility of being parents just to feed a stomach. Think about it. If you write a check and for a charity so that they can take care of an orphan or raise a child and feed the hungry, how different is that than what you do with your own child or your own spouse in the house? It's not different, not any different. So clearly being a parent brings additional responsibilities. We're stewards, brothers and sisters, for ensuring that this child is more than just being fed, right? Is going to be receiving much more than just a bed to sleep on and an address that they can have their mail sent to. This is a tremendous responsibility on the parent to do what's called tarbiyah. Tarbiyah is really raising the child with the tools to really know how to thrive in this life, how to flourish in this life, socially, emotionally, to know how to become really grounded, not just academically successful, and not just having good health. So the idea of raising the child in this matter involves the following. Number one, it demands of the parents this authoritative parent, right, with their children to instill and inculcate convictions. Think about this. Convictions, the internal voice in the child, the values, the principles that you really want your child to grow up with. What are those principles, brothers and sisters? What are those values? The values of truthfulness, for example, trust, right? Belief in Allah Azza wa Jal, the beliefs, the religious aspirations. All these things are internal, they're intrinsic. So how do you embed them in the child? Clearly, the parent has to show up in this child's life and make sure that we inculcate in them those values, beliefs, and convictions, and religious aspirations and way of living by what? By constant engagement, by conversations, by repeating those reminders throughout their lives and living those values and principles. That's an essential aspect of this tarbiyah. Number two, this parent who's really, paying attention to this incredible duty has to guide and steer the interests of the child. Again, you cannot assume that the child will know how to steer their own interests. The child doesn't know any better, brothers and sisters. They have internal talents, abilities that Allah has endowed them with, but they need someone to help them discover those talents by trying different things. We're talking here about things such as, I'm going to get into the skills in number three, but what I'm talking about is interests such as, how do I spend my time? What do I think about in this life? Again, depending on the types of interactions and conversations that this parent has with the child from the get-go, from an early age, right? You cannot just assume that the child will know how to think about life, how to occupy their time. What kinds of hobbies do I have in this life will depend most likely on what the parent does with the child, how they spend their time with them, what kinds of games do you engage with them on, right? What do you expose them to? What kinds of ideas and conversations do you have in the household will shape how this child will think and how they fill their time. The parent with the authoritative parenting style who is really busy raising the child will also help the child develop their skills. Again, they have these internal capacities, inclinations towards all kinds of things that they're going to be good at, right? That they're going to be naturally inclined to in this life. Skills, I'm talking. And they're going to be naturally disinclined from other types of interests in life, other types of skills. How would the child know? It's the responsibility, again, of the parent to help the child learn and discover themselves. So I'm talking about the intellectual arena, the artistic arena. Not all children are artistic in terms of their inclinations. Some are born with athletic abilities. Imagine if this child with this proclivity towards sports, right? They're really just equipped and endowed, physically to be able to do well athletically. But if they're never ever going to be given the chance to play sports, to experiment with the different types of games, how are they going to discover themselves to be, incredible with racing, let's say, with soccer, with basketball? Well, it's again the responsibility of the parents, depending clearly on the resources available, because not all parents have access, brothers and sisters. Not all parents, think of the parents in poor neighborhoods who don't have access to, let's say, sports that demand, that are costly, or the types of, again, social or educational opportunities that wealthier people will have access to. We're talking about whatever it is that this parent is capable of accessing in terms of resources. It's the job of the parent to expose against the child so that the child can discover their skills. Number four is helping this child understand the foundations of relationships. I can't emphasize this enough. One of the things that I observe with many children is that they grow up not learning or not having the skills for initiating and also cultivating healthy relationships. It's because they never learned it in the house, or it was because they observed their parents to be fighting all the time or arguing all the time. And these parents clearly never figured it out between themselves. How are they going to impart to that child the ability to learn about relationships? Brothers and sisters, this is one of the most important skills we can give a child: how to navigate the social space, how to handle conversations with others, how to develop a friendship, how to handle conflict with others, how to handle a meltdown with somebody else when they get you upset or they get under your skin. If this child is going to fail or they're not going to learn that, think about how they're going to manage their own families in the future, or they manage their managers on the job if they have a conflict with them. If we want to help our children thrive in life, we really need to impart to them the ability to, again, manage relationships. Number 5 is choosing role models. Again, the child doesn't know who their role models should be. How many children, again, say, we always hear this, my idol is such and such athlete, Kobe Johnson, or whoever, Tiger Woods, or this or that. I'm talking about, good old times. I mean, now we have LeBron Johns and, James, and others who are really more popular with the young generation. But are these their idols? Okay, it's fine if they aspire to a figure like this athletically, but what about morally and ethically and spiritually? Do they have these figures in their lives that they've been exposed to early on that they can aspire to? If the parent is not bringing that up, if the parent themselves take mediocre figures as their role models in life, and if that's all the child hears them talking about, clearly that's what the child is going to learn. So it's a duty of the parent who cares about bringing up the child in a healthy way to pay attention to the subject of role models. Again, look at these items, brothers and sisters, and ask yourself, am I keeping these items in mind, instilling values in my child, steering their interests, developing their skills, helping them learn and navigate relationships, and having honest, open conversations with them about these things because they're critical to their lives and to their growth, and also helping them choose role models. Because when the child thinks of a good role model, brothers and sisters, they're going to refer to that image in their heads in their future whenever they run into all kinds of situations. This is what they want to aspire to become. They're going to follow in their footsteps. This is why it is so critical to pay attention to the subject of role models. How do we define success? I want to talk about this because I see it to be a very pervasive issue. How do we talk about success, and what are the experiences or definitions of happiness that we, again, teach our children? What are our common views of success and happiness? Now, how often do we see it being manifested in our communities or with our families or culturally, that we come to define success by the measures that I'm presenting here on the screen, that we measure success materially, meaning that the more that you have materially, financially, the more successful you are. So we measure people's success in life by how much they have. By your grades, how often, again, do we see the success of our own children being measured by having straight A's in school? And if they are not living up to that expectation, that we ourselves, even if we don't tell the child, that we see them as failures, all out failure in life, just because they don't have the grades that we want them to have in life. And what kind of a message do we send to the child? Are we teaching them that the overall success in life has to do with you getting those grades? Another example is status symbols, right? How often do we see in our culture, again, that success and happiness is associated with having status symbols in your lives? The right car, the right brand for your shoes, for your clothes, the right zip code for your house, and the right size of the house, and the right club that you belong to. If the child sees their parents, again, living the notion of success this way, or that their conversations in the house are all around status symbols and, what kind of a brand, am I gonna have, like, do I love the most? And that's all they hear about, and the size of the car and the model of the car. That's all they're exposed to. What do you think this child is going to think in terms of success in life? They're clearly going to be copying the parent. Also, the idea of being busy. This is also a pervasive notion that is very dangerous in our culture, namely that for you to be successful, you need to be busy all the time. Non-stop multitasking. In psychology, they've studied the devastating impact of multitasking, actually. Unfortunately, we glorify the idea, the concept of multitasking. It turns out to be actually not an effective way of living life. But again, we think of the successful individual as somebody who's juggling so many tasks at the same time, and it's almost like a negative thing, right? To see a person not bothering to be piling up a list of things to do, at any moment, and that for them to take a break in life is something that is unwanted or uncool, right? Or that it means that this person is lazy or not serious in life. Again, are we imparting those ideas to the child in our household? It is our fault, brothers and sisters, if our children are obsessed with the wrong notions of success. And also, I'm going to talk about happiness. What is it that makes somebody happy or not happy? Oftentimes, again, we see in our culture that happiness is associated with getting things, with feeling good in the moment, right? Which means what? Having bad feelings, for example, is an unwanted thing. So what happens if this child is not feeling well? They're going to be thinking, I'm not meant for happiness in this life. They're not going to know how to deal with negative emotions. So it's very dangerous to equate happiness with this temporary feeling, this fleeting feeling of needing to feel good in the moment and having your needs met, right? With getting things, right? This is, again, a false notion of happiness that is very dangerous, and it can breed serious mental illness in life. Self-worth. Now, depending on how we help our children in terms of understanding the healthy concept of success and happiness, that is going to have a severe impact on what is called their self-worth. What is self-worth? Self-worth, it's a distinct concept from self-esteem, right? We're not going to have the time today to go into all of this, but let me just give a word on self-worth, because it is very important for you to pay attention to self-worth. Self-worth is a measure of how you feel about yourself in terms of whether you think you're loved or not loved, whether you think you're lovable or not lovable, whether you think you're worthy or not worthy, whether you think you have value or no value. Where do you measure on that scale is your self-worth. So if I feel that I'm not worthy, I don't have any value, right? I'm not really deserve to be loved, then I'm low on that scale. I have low self-worth. If I think I am a loved person, I'm lovable, I'm worthy, I'm precious, it's an intrinsic thing, then you're high on self-worth. What we want to be is definitely high on self-worth. And what we want for our children so that they can thrive and flourish in this life is that for them to have high self-worth. It's devastating if the child grows up with low self-worth. Now, the false notions of success that we just talked about, associating success with, multitasking, with status symbols, with getting more in life, right? That breeds or undermines self-worth. Why is that? Because if the child thinks that I need to get more in life to feel worthy and to feel loved, that people will love me if I have the cool car, if I dress in a particular way, if I have a certain title. Like if I don't have that title next to my name, or I go to a certain school or college, the Yale, the Harvard, if I don't go there, I'm not going to be looked at favorably in society. So what do you think is going to happen if they don't go to these schools? What do you think is going to happen if they don't get the Benz or the Beamer? They're going to think low of themselves. So they're going to have low self-worth. So the false notion of success, brothers and sisters, that is associated with having more in life will definitely damage the self-worth of the child. Similarly, if they think that happiness in life is about getting things, is about what people say about me, so they're constantly looking for people to like them. And we see this present on social media. People who constantly post so that they can get more likes from people. What happens if people don't like what you're saying? What happens, right, if you're not getting your immediate needs met in the moment? That you cannot get to go on that vacation to make you happy. You're going to become miserable, and you're going to think that, again, you're not deserving of happiness. So it's going to, again, damage that self-worth. So it is extremely important, brothers and sisters, for us as parents to pay attention to how we define success and happiness for the child, so that we can actually elevate their sense of self-worth. And think also of the stress associated with associating success and happiness in life with getting more, or with getting a certain social status, let's say. keeping up with the Joneses, as they say, as a common phrase goes, right? Keeping up with the Joneses is a very stressful thing. That I need to keep up with my neighbor who bought this home. I need to keep up with my cousins who had the $50,000 or the $100,000 wedding. And if I don't do this, I'm not going to be good enough, right? Keeping up with the Joneses or with our cousins who got certain things in their lives is very stressful. So it's going, and we've talked before about the damaging effect of stress on our children. So if we as parents don't model this behavior of equating success in life, not with these extrinsic things, but with internal things, as I'll talk shortly, inshallah, about things that are bigger than just the satisfaction of themselves. And the children are going to internalize that. And as a consequence, they're going to be experiencing in their lives much better contentment, satisfaction, and fulfillment. So the focus instead, as I alluded to, has to be on the intrinsic, the internals, and not the extrinsic. Success and happiness, brothers and sisters, it's very important for us to pay attention to this, are not about getting things. Instead of focusing actually on happiness, what we need to do with our children is focus instead on what is called fulfillment, which is derived from what? It's not from getting things, but it's from meaning and purpose. That means that instead of having as a goal in your life is to get a Porsche, right? Or to become a millionaire, right? Or to buy a home in a certain zip code, your goal should be, what should drive you, inspire you, is for me to live for a purpose bigger than myself. You know what they found, brothers and sisters, for motivation, for studies on motivation? That actually, if you tell a child, I want you to go get good grades so that you can make more money, what do you think the outcome is? Do you think a 7 or 8-year-old, they're going to be motivated if you tell them, hey kid, if you get straight A's, you're going to be able to get a 6-figure salary, and buy a car that you want and be very happy in your life? Do you think they'll be motivated? They found from studies that the child will not be motivated. Why is that? Because Allah wired our children to want to actually live for something bigger than themselves. But it's a job of the parent to help them discover that. So they found in the studies that it's the more effective way of motivating a child, or any human being for that matter, but especially children, is to actually tell the child, kid, I want you to get better grades so that you can help yourself become better academically, so that you can get a degree, get a better job for what? So that you can help poor people, so that you can help, take care of the orphans, so that you can help take care of such and such in society. Do you know that this motivates children more? Why is that? Because again, Allah wired us to want to care for causes bigger than ourselves and to help others and alleviate the needs of other people and their suffering. So it doesn't motivate people to focus on extrinsic things, but to focus on intrinsic meaning and purpose. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, it works. And you can try this with your children and you'll see the outcomes of that. And also what we need to focus on is not the self. It's, life is about you becoming happy and getting more and more and more. So it's what I call the me. Me. That's self-centeredness. The focus Islamically on what I would call mui. Mui is me and we. You are important. You need to pay attention to yourself, but you also need to pay attention to what? The family, the community, earth, society. The we is important, is as important as the me. Both are important. It's not the me at the expense of we, nor is it the we at the expense of me. So it's called mui, as one of the neuroscientists would love to call it. Brothers and sisters, isn't that the heart of Islam, right? But again, if the parent is not emphasizing this, right, and they're not modeling that behavior and those values, the child is not going to learn it. The child is going to think me, my toys, my grades. I'm not going to help other children or students succeed because it's all about me. I want to hoard more. So it's going to damage them in this life. And also making sure, and again, this is an extremely dangerous outcome of us not emphasizing what the right concept of beauty is. If all we do in front of our children is to praise good looks, for example, Oh, look at her. She's really has, beautiful. She's so beautiful because of her skin. If we suggest that because, lighter skin is more beautiful, then what is it going to happen to that child if they don't have that skin? What if we said, oh, blue colored eyes. Oh, they're amazing. And we praise those actors and actresses that have blue eyes. Isn't that what we commonly do even as Muslims, right? We're, blown away. We're just enthralled by certain looks, subhanAllah. And then we reiterate those messages in front of our children, and we might even praise in front of them other children that have those looks. What are we teaching the child? You're not beautiful. You're ugly, right? So we limited beauty to just the physical dimension. What if that parent doesn't do that? What if that parent emphasizes to the child that you have an internal beauty, that your heart is beautiful, your soul is beautiful. It doesn't matter what your looks are, right? And we also make sure that when we speak of others, we speak the same way, that their beauty is really internal. They have a beautiful heart. They have a beautiful character. Allah loves them. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, you keep repeating this child will grow up to be thinking that they are beautiful, that they're not going to be damaged whenever they hear conversations about physical beauty, because they're not threatened, because they recognize I have within me beauty. And because my parent has emphasized this, because my parent reminded me that I'm beautiful, right? And they never compare me to other people. I cannot again emphasize this enough, because it's so tragic to see many of our children growing up thinking of themselves as ugly, brothers and sisters, ugly, and makes them very depressed. And some, believe it or not, commit suicide because of this, because they think that they're not good enough, they're not beautiful enough. And again, it goes back to the parents to help that child grow up with these healthy notions of themselves. There are certain forbiddens, unfortunately, that many of us do not pay attention to. Again, they're associated with the concept of happiness and success. We oftentimes tell ourselves and our children that there are two things that are frowned upon. Number one is negative emotions, and number two is making mistakes. So think again to yourself, ask yourself this question as a parent. Do you allow your children to make mistakes? Even you, when you make mistakes, how do you react to that? Are you a parent that permits their children to make mistakes, and you embrace that and make them see that making mistakes is an opportunity for learning and growing, and it's okay for them to do that? Or are you the unforgiving parent who says, no, 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 you made a mistake, you're going to pay for it. I'm going to ground you, right? I'm going to take such and such from you because you failed, and punish them severely for this. What are we teaching them there? And what are we teaching them if we didn't allow what I would call negative emotions? Meaning that, oh, it's not good to be sad. You need to be happy. Don't be angry. You need to be cool all the time. You cannot be stressed out. You need to be in control. But what if the child is experiencing these things? So if they're experiencing these things and we told them that this is forbidden, and successful, happy people don't feel bad, don't feel sad, right? Don't feel depressed. What are we telling them then? They're not going to have the ability to deal with their emotions. It's devastating, brothers and sisters. If we, again, teach our children that it's not okay to have negative emotions and it's not okay to make mistakes. Experiencing negative emotions is a struggle. So again, think of the consequences of the child learning from the parent that they cannot have negative feelings. The consequence of this is that they're going to be struggling every time they're angry, every time that they are sad, every time that they're afraid. They're not going to know how to deal and cope with that emotion. And there's a concept in psychology, a saying that goes like this: whatever we resist persists. Meaning that if I determine or say to myself that sadness is not good, I cannot be sad. So when I'm sad, I'm going to be worked up. I'm going to be angry, actually, because my parents taught me that I shouldn't be sad, right? So I need to push it out. The more that I resist that sadness, the more that it's going to persist, because it's unhealthy to be sad, right? It's unhealthy to be stressed out, etc., etc., etc. So you're going to battle with these emotions. And these emotions, when we battle with them, they're going to persist and produce stress. And stress, brothers and sisters, damages the human being. Damages the human beings. Because if these negative emotions, if we dwell on them and they become deeper and deeper and deeper. They start to take a toll on us mentally, physiologically, physically. We become ill. So we're literally breaking this child's ability to deal with their own emotions. Instead of this, what we need to teach is that you are a human being and you're meant to experience the range of emotions. Did we learn anything from Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam in the Quran? Who, when he was sad, what did he say? He didn't say, I need to suppress this feeling. He lost his children, brothers. He lost Yusuf and later Binyamin. Lost Yusuf for decades. He was crying out until he lost his eyesight. Now, what does Allah say about him? Oh, Yaqub was bad. Wal-iyadu billah, because he was sad and he cried until he lost his eyesight. Did Allah condemn him? No. Allah taught us how to deal with sadness, gave us the tools. Yaqub modeled that behavior in front of his own children. So he said, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I'm going to submit my grief to Allah. And I know that which from Allah, that which others don't know. Meaning that I'm going to permit myself to be sad. I embrace it. I accept it. It's going to have to live its time, go through its time, right? Go through that process. And Allah has given me tools to deal with that sadness. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I'm going to turn to Allah Azza wa Jal to help me heal, overcome this, right? So I need to start paying attention to other things, but I'm going to recognize part of my experience as a human being is to experience sadness, right? So that's a healthy coping with sadness, and to recognize your heart is meant to break. Your heart is meant to be sad. Your heart is meant to be afraid. Your heart is meant to be stressed out and anxious. Those are human feelings. The danger is dwelling on them. The danger is if they take over our lives. So what we need to teach our children instead is that, tell me about your feelings. Remember, we spoke about this, helping the child identify their emotions. If they're angry in front of you, tell me, are you angry? So tell me, talk to me. What made you angry? You're sad, right? Let the child say, I am sad, and then help them navigate through that space and understand what is it that made them sad? What is it that made them afraid? So what are they going to learn? They're going to learn that it's natural to feel negative emotions. They're not unwanted. They're not bad. They're part of being human. And now you're giving them the skills on how to deal with those emotions. So that when they're going to be parents or spouses, whenever they have a problem with their spouse and they're feeling sad, they know how to deal with that. They know how to deal with the sadness of their spouse and their child. They're not going to yell at them for being sad. How often do we tell people, get over it, stop being sad? When people lose loved ones, how often do we tell them, hey, you cannot be sad, it's haram. Allah is not going to be happy because that means you're rejecting the decree of Allah. Brothers and sisters, that's un-Islamic actually. Rasulullah ﷺ even cried, had emotions, but he taught us how to navigate those emotions, how to heal from those experiences, right? Because he was a human being. That's Islam, brothers and sisters. That is correct parenting. So again, we need to teach him how to deal with emotions and foster what's called resilience. Resilience is the ability to not avoid problems in life and struggle in life. It is to go through the struggles in life and heal from those struggles, overcome those struggles. There is no skill that is more important to impart to our children than not to avoid challenges. No. To recognize struggle is part of life and make them resilient enough that when they go through struggles in their lives, when we're not present, that they're going to be able to navigate through those struggles and overcome those struggles without breaking. I tell you, brothers and sisters, again, as somebody who has tended to many broken hearts, many young people who have struggled with so many issues and challenges, many of them don't have the tools. They're not resilient. That's why many of them end up leaving the faith, because they never learned resilience, dealing with challenges, because their parents might have taught them that it's not okay to struggle. It is not okay to fail. It is not okay to be confused, right? They never had those healthy conversations. They never modeled those behaviors. Again, the goal is to help our children become resilient, because we're not going to always be there for them. To teach them that they can go through these ebbs and flows emotionally, right? And to go through the struggles of life. And sometimes you're going to be happy and sometimes you're going to be sad, and it's okay. And the parent themselves need to model that behavior, that if you're sad, it's okay to cry in front of your child, and show them how now I'm going to be taking a break. I'm going to be making dua to Allah Azza wa Jalla to help me heal. that, tonight I'm confused. I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? Show them that you can be confused. Show them that you can be sad and afraid, but then show them how you can overcome that. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, your children will appreciate this, and they're going to become stronger as a result. Self-esteem and self-worth, unfortunately, we don't have the time to differentiate between these two, but it's a very important concept, inshallah, so I'm going to defer on that, and inshallah, in the interest of time, move on to the next topic. Very important. So for our children to grow up, to be successful, to flourish, to thrive, to be resilient, we need to have them have a certain mindset that you and I as parents are capable of cultivating. So there are two types of mindsets. There's what's called fixed mindset, and there is what's called growth mindset. What is a fixed mindset? Fixed mindset is the mindset where people believe that their basic qualities, like intelligence, like skills, like their talent, are simply fixed and innate. You cannot change them. You're born with a certain IQ level, certain intelligence level, certain proclivity and skill level, athletically, intellectually, academically. That's it. Who you are is who you are. You're born with it and you cannot change it. That's called fixed mindset. Alternatively, there's a powerful concept called growth mindset. Growth mindset is for the human being to believe that they're sure born with certain abilities, skills, and talents, but these things can be changed, can be cultivated, can be grown through what? Hard work, dedication, and practice. So they're in control of this. These things are, yeah, I'm grown with a certain level of intelligence, but I can work on it and grow it. I might not be the best at this, at soccer, but I can improve myself through practice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in control of this. As they say, the brain and the talent are just a starting point. So again, it's called the growth mindset. Let's give examples of this. So somebody with a fixed mindset on the right side is somebody who is going to say this. And I want you to think to yourself, are you that person? And is your child that type of person? Do you find yourself, or do you find your child saying, I'm good at this, I'm really good at this, or I'm not good at this? Yeah. I'm not good at painting. I'm horrible at it. So I'm not going to take a course in painting because I'm not as good as my sister, right? Do you feel yourself saying, or your child, I'm frustrated, so I'm not going to even try. I'm just frustrated. You see yourself, or you see your child giving up quickly when they're not able to do a task or to do their homework, et cetera, et cetera. Or to feel internally that you don't like to be challenged. Like, you know what, I'm going to avoid this doing this puzzle, or taking this course, or pushing myself a little bit in this game, in this sport, because I feel like I'm not going to do well, right? So you avoid the challenge because of that internal feeling. Whenever you find yourself failing, automatically you say, I'm horrible, I'm not good at this. Oh, I'm not good at chess because I keep losing. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it. Or you find your child again saying this. Or you find yourself or your child saying, I'm not smart. I'm dumb. I'm just not smart enough. I'm not like my cousin. I'm not like my sibling. And again, the idea that my abilities determine everything and I'm born with them, as opposed to having what's called the growth mindset. The attitude that, I can learn anything by working hard. The feeling that, listen, if I'm frustrated, I'm not going to give up on the task. I'm going to keep trying over and over and over. To find yourself, or to find your child really wanting the challenge. Listen, I want to learn how to cook. But you're not good at cooking. No, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to try and I can mess it up. And if I mess up the meal, and if everybody says it sucks, it was terrible, yeah, I feel bad in the moment. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to say I'm a terrible cook. I'm going to go back into the kitchen and learn over and over and over until I enhance the meal. I can learn that skill. I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to put the determination on myself that I'm just a horrible cook from trying once. So when I fail, I'm going to learn. I want to try harder and harder. And if I succeed, or if somebody else succeeds, it makes me inspired. My effort, my attitude determine everything. It's not innate, right? So again, do you find your child or yourself having a growth mindset? So how do we nurture and cultivate that growth mindset? Clearly, what we want is for our child and ourselves to keep trying harder and harder, and not to give up if they fail, and not to say about themselves that they're dumb or they're not smart enough. Because what happens if they say that they're dumb and they're not smart enough? They're not going to try, brothers and sisters. They're not going to push themselves. And as soon as they fail, they're going to give up and be frustrated. How do we cultivate then the growth mindset? One of the most effective ways is through what's called effective praise. Praising the children can cultivate either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. There's what's called person praise. Person praise is one where you imply to your child that their success has to do with their natural abilities, which they cannot control. Whereas what's called, as opposed to what's called process praise. Process praise is to just suggest to your child that their success doesn't have to do with their natural abilities, but with their effort. I'm going to give examples of that, inshallah. Process praise is more likely to cultivate that growth mindset so that your child can learn from their failures and keep trying harder and harder and not give up. It is going to make them more resilient so that they don't give up and become frustrated because they failed, or when they get negative feedback from others. It doesn't mean you don't become sad. It doesn't mean you're going to feel some anger in the moment, but it's going to disappear with time. And you're going to pick yourself up, and despite your sadness or frustration, say, I'm going to go back and try harder. So that negative feedback might have affected me, but I'm going to pick myself up and try harder and harder, which is what? The growth mindset. It depends on this, what's called the process praise. Let's give examples, inshallah. Look on the left side. Person praise goes like this. Hey kid, great job. You're really smart in math, right? You're really good at math. You're just a natural talent. You're amazing with soccer, right? You have the feet, you have this, you're just incredible. You're really good at English. You got an A in the last test. You're really good at English. You got it. I told you were smart. I told you were strong. I told you were just a genius, right? This is what's called person praise. Or to say something like as simple as, you're really a good student. This type of praise, brothers and sisters, breeds or cultivates what's called the fixed mindset. Because when you tell your child, you're really smart. So what happens if they got a bad grade? They're going to think they're not smart. Because I kept telling you, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart. Or if I said, you're really good at math, you're really good at math. What happens if they, again, got a bad grade in math? They're going to think, I'm not good at math. So I'm going to avoid now what? Taking more challenging math. I'm going to avoid anything that will take that A away from me, because if I don't get an A, that means I'm not smart. So when we do the person praise to the child or with the child, you're going to actually hold them from taking on challenges in their lives and from trying harder when they fail, because we taught them that failure is not acceptable because you're smart and you are a natural ability. You're a genius, right? Very dangerous type of praise, brothers and sisters. And it makes them actually also full of themselves. And their feeling of happiness is going to be very short-lived. It's going to be very fleeting. Try instead what's called, as I said, the process praise. Instead of saying, you must be really smart at this, you say, great job. You must have really worked hard on your math homework. So I'm emphasizing what the process, that you worked hard. I'm praising the fact that the child worked hard. I'm not saying you have amazing IQ. You're really a natural talent. No. I'm praising the fact that you worked hard on your homework or on your test. Again, you really studied for your English test and the results show it. I like the way you tried all kinds of strategies on this problem or that problem until you got it figured out. I'm really proud of you because you tried hard. You tried different strategies. I love the way you stayed at your desk. A teacher can tell the child, I really like the way you stayed at your desk, how you cleaned it, how you stayed concentrated. Good job. Keep doing that. What am I teaching the child if I did this? I'm teaching them to keep trying harder. I'm praising them for trying harder. I'm praising the process, not the natural ability. This will teach them again or cultivate within them what's called the growth mindset. So if we want our children to succeed, brothers and sisters, pay attention to how you praise them. And what you praise with them, you're literally helping them either develop a negative mindset that will make them fail, or a growth mindset that will make them, inshallah, do well. Inshallah, I have a few more slides. Bear with me for 10 minutes or so. It's a wrap up, bi'idhnillah. I wanted to take this opportunity, inshallah, to help you see how this was modeled by Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam with his child Yusuf. It's an amazing thing, brothers. If you look at the Quran, you see these very short passages that have infinite wisdom for them. And on the subject of parenting, the Quran is full of jewels. It leaves it up to you and me to extract the lessons. So here we are in Surah Yusuf, verse 2. We see Allah Azza wa Jalla, I'm going to translate in the interest of time, where he says, and when Yusuf came to his father, and he said to his father, oh dad, and he was a young child, only 10 years of age, I saw 11 planets and the sun and the moon in a dream last night, prostrating to me. He's telling his father the dream he had last night. Then he said to his child, oh my son, I hear you. Don't share this dream with your brothers, lest that they plot and scheme against you. I don't want them to hurt you. So don't share that dream with them. Indeed, Satan is the enemy of man. And your Lord, Allah Azza wa Jal, will surely choose you and teach you the interpretation of the dreams, and will complete his blessing upon you like he has completed it upon the family of Yaqub, right? My family. And just as he completed it for our forefathers, Ibrahim and Ishaq, indeed your Lord, Allah Azza wa Jal, is all-knowing, all-wise. You see this short passage of this conversation that occurred between Yaqub and his son Yusuf contains infinite lessons on what, brothers and sisters? Wallahi, on this positive parenting. And you're seeing the outcome of this positive parenting through this conversation. Ask yourself, why would Yusuf alayhi salam go to his father Yaqub to share a dream? Did he expect that his father would ignore him like the neglectful parent who's going to say, I don't have time, go to your mother? No, he knew that his father is going to listen to him. His father was clearly busy. He had 11 other children. He had a life to live. He had responsibilities as a prophet. And yet when Yusuf came to him, he gave him his full devotion and his whole attention. And then the conversation happened. How Yaqub responded to Yusuf teaches us so much on parenting. So let us go over those lessons, inshallah, as we'll see. I enumerated here 11 lessons, easy. You could extract a lot more. So Prophet Yaqub was an amazing authoritative parent. And here are the lessons he teaches us about how to raise a child. Number one, he clearly built a bond and a connection with Yusuf alayhi salam. Trust. How do we know this? As I said, Yusuf went to his dad when he had a dream that he couldn't interpret. Would your child come to you to share what happened with his friend? Would your child come to you to tell you, I'm not feeling well? Dad, mom, I saw this. Oh, such and such happened in yesterday's game. Are you going to be like, I'm sorry, child, just can you come to me an hour later, right? Look at what happened. Yusuf alayhi salam knew that he can go to his father, and his father left everything, brothers and sisters, to sit with his child. It's not the first time he did this. He helped Yusuf grow up knowing that he could always turn to him. He built that trust. He never judged him. He never gave him a hard time. He never yelled at Yusuf for coming to him. So what did he build in that case? Trust. So that Yusuf now, when he faced a situation he couldn't understand, that was making him sad, he knew that he can go to his father. That's what we want, brothers and sisters. Building that bond and connection and trust with our children so that the children will come to us when they really need us. But it takes time. Number two, he treated his child with love and respect. Did he say, when his child says, I saw 11 planets, prostrating to me, and the sun and the moon? How many times do you find yourself say, look at my child, he's seeing things, right? Or you make fun of the child, or you look down on it and say, hey, come on, this is like nothing. Are you kidding? Really, planets made sujood to you? And then you say, ha, 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 right? What is the child going to think? Oh, my parent just made fun of me. So they're not going to share anything with you, right? And believe it or not, brothers, many parents end up doing this, right? Not taking the child seriously, belittling their story, and not giving them the attention. That teaches the child, I cannot trust my parent. They're not going to take me seriously. Again, showed him respect, but also showed him love. Sat with him with a smile, brothers and sisters. Expressed his love and affection. We've seen this in terms of how sad he was when he lost Yusuf. He was a very loving parent. He expressed it verbally and physically. Number 3, he prioritized the child. He made time for his son Yusuf. He sat one-on-one with his child, perhaps on a daily basis. Number 4, provided a safe environment. Again, you can come to me right now. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to scream at you. You're free to share what you want to share, and you can feel safe. Do our children feel safe with us, or do they feel threatened? Do they feel at risk when they're with us? Is a very key question, brothers and sisters. Prophet Yaqub taught us that we need to provide a safe environment for our children. Number 5, he listened attentively. He didn't interrupt Yusuf when he spoke. He let him complete, and then he had a conversation with him. The importance of listening attentively. Number 6, he showed interest in what the child had to say. He didn't dismiss it. He didn't belittle it. He was nodding at him, and then he reciprocated. He commented on his dream, as we'll see shortly. Number 7, again, didn't dismiss him, didn't scold him, didn't insult him, respected him. Number 8, he was open and honest. What did he tell his child? Yaqub recognized that his child is going to grow up to be something important. He knew that he's going to be ahead of his siblings. He's going to be selected by Allah. And his own siblings, right, are going to do what? They're going to actually, perhaps be subservient to him in some fashion, right? They're going to be, he's going to be ahead of them in this life. So he understood that his siblings might hurt him if they heard this dream. So what did he do? How often do we find ourselves shielding our children, not being honest and open with them? Because they're not mature enough, perhaps, or they're not old enough. And we think, no, my child shouldn't learn about this because it's too dangerous. Or I don't want him to know that, his cousin or his other sibling might hurt him. So I'm not going to talk to them about this. It happens so much that we shield our children, brothers and sisters. Yaqub alayhi salam did not do this. He was honest and open with Yusuf, and he said, don't share this dream with your siblings. And then he told them the reason, because they might be jealous of you. But then he attributed the jealousy to the shaitan, because he wanted Yusuf to still love his siblings. But he was honest, he was open, and what he was teaching him is what? Resilience. Number 9, challenges will happen in life. Your own siblings can end up being jealous with you. I'm not going to shield you from that. But I want you to understand the shaitan is there. Problems will happen. You need to learn that life is struggle, but Allah will take care of you. You need to learn how to deal with that. So he's teaching his child resilience. And number 10, he praised his child and encouraged him. He didn't leave him on a negative note. He said, Allah will choose you. You're going to go through struggles in life, but Allah is going to take care of you. Allah is going to elevate you. Allah is going to bless you just as he blessed me and blessed our forefathers, Ibrahim. Right? Our whole family. You come from a great legacy, Yusuf. You come up from a good lineage. You have the way of Ibrahim and Yaqub and Ishaq. Follow in their footsteps, and Allah will take care of you. You have a great cause to subscribe to in this life. You see how he encouraged a child, raise his self-esteem, raise his sense of self-worth. Number 11. I'm going to encourage you. You need to feel that you're loved by Allah. Allah loves you. You're worthy. You're going to live for a good cause and serve Allah Azza wa Jal. All of that was, brothers and sisters, contained in just 3 verses of the Quran. Again, the model parent. I'm going to, inshallah, spend 5 minutes or so on this very important topic. How do we teach Islam? Again, this is something that parents struggle with a lot, but I'm going to just sum it up in few points. Inshallah, in the discussion, I'm open for questions or your insights. We can spend a whole session talking about this. But again, I wanted to gather as many important topics as I can in this session. And inshallah, leave you with some food for thought. Number 1, you need to teach lovingly like Rasulullah ﷺ did. Don't ever, brothers and sisters, teach Islam by yelling, by screaming, by getting frustrated with your children. You need to teach with love, with a smile on your face. Be patient. Don't overload them. Rasulullah ﷺ used to actually tell somebody like Mu'adh ibn Jabal. He prayed with him, then he held his hands and he says, I love you, Mu'adh. I love you, Mu'adh. I love you, Mu'adh. And then he taught him instructions or guidance from Islam. Make the child feel loved. feel that they want to be with you in that moment and make it a loving moment. So teach lovingly. Number two, model the behavior. Never teach them something you yourself are not doing. To tell them pray on time, but you're not praying on time, right? To make proper wudu, but you're not making it. To be truthful, but you're not truthful. Model the behavior in front of them. Number three, I can't emphasize enough. The most important thing to teach the child, brothers and sisters, is by fostering their love of Allah. Not to say you need to obey Allah, you need to pray to Allah, but to talk to them about Allah lovingly, about His attributes, about His names, about Allah's presence in their lives, about His rahmah, His beauty, His knowledge, His heavens. Make them really fall in love with Allah Azza wa Jal, and don't be angry when you talk about these beautiful things about Allah. Don't be frustrated with your child. Don't make them, hate even Allah Azza wa Jal by threatening them with punishment, by threatening them with the hellfire. Teach them about the hellfire. But don't say, for example, if you don't do this, Allah is going to punish you. What are they going to learn? To really hate Islam. And I've dealt with many children, wallahi, who hate Islam. Don't want anything to do with it because of these negative experiences with the parent. Foster in them the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by telling them stories about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And connect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to their lives by saying, what would Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do in this situation? They're having conflict with their friend. What would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? Somebody got them angry. What would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? They're late for the salah. What would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, do in this situation? How would he react? What would he tell his parent? What would he tell his friend, etc.? Remind them about the beauty of things in life associated with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, character associated with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This way they'll real in a practical way what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is and isn't. And he will naturally come to their minds, and that will purify their hearts, brothers and sisters. Love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number five, articulate Islamic values and principles. Keep talking about them to the child. Have conversations with them about Islamic values. Number six, pray with your child without forcing them, without yelling at them. Make them love to come to salah with you. Do not make it a burden on them. Sometimes you need to give them a break. Maybe they're doing something. Don't be like insistent all the time. If you don't come right now, right, you're gonna suffer the consequences. Sometimes you need to be easy, depending on their age, and then you can become more strict. But pray with your children. Read Quran together with your children, and don't burden them by too much of it. Number eight, family dhikr. Remember Allah together. Make dhikr together, perhaps before Maghrib or after Maghrib, after Fajr. Make a time where you as a family can remember Allah Azza wa Jalla together and make salawat on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number nine, du'as in front of your children. Make sure your children hear you making dua to Allah and also making dua for them in front of them. Make them hear you say, Ya Allah, take care of my child. Ya Allah, make my child righteous. You know what that's going to do for them? It's going to make them feel good about themselves, that my dad loves me, my mom loves me, and I'm worthy that they're making dua to Allah to bless me. So they're going to think well of themselves, and they're going to see how you connect with Allah through dua. Make them hear your duas and show them how proud you are of Islam. Again, show them how proud you are of Islam. Don't be, brothers and sisters, concealing your faith, because your child will learn that they need to be ashamed of their faith. And again, I see this to be a very pervasive problem with Muslim families. There are other topics, we don't have the time, but I'm going to just simply say them in 2 minutes. Make sure, brothers and sisters, when your children reach a certain age, don't delay this. Don't avoid it. Bring up real conversations about real topics with them. Don't say, oftentimes I see they're turning 11, 12, 13, and the parents are still avoiding talking to them about sensitive topics such as friends, puberty, drugs, dating, sex, marriage, pornography. I can't tell you how many young Muslim children are addicted to pornography from the age of 8, 9, and 10. I see it all the time, brothers and sisters. Their parents never talk to them about the dangers of that. They never talk to them about dating, about sex when they turn 10 and 11. Guess what? Your children have already heard it from their schoolmates. When I talk to my children, and they're 11, brothers and sisters, they were so happy when we got into talking about dating, pornography, and all this. They said to me they already heard it. So when I said it, I said, Alhamdulillah, we're talking right now, me and my wife, to them. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, it's never too late. My reminder to you, I'm not talking about the age of 4, 5, or 6, or 7. No, but start talking early, and don't assume they're not hearing about it, but they're not going to bring it up to you. When they see the parent talk to them about this, they're actually going to be very happy and learn to trust you and say, my parents are cool. They're talking to me. I'm going to listen. Otherwise, they're going to hear it from someone in the school, and your child might be already committing some of these things without you knowing. In fact, many Muslim children are doing these things, and I can attest to that from my experience. You're better off, brothers and sisters, having these conversations as soon as you can. Teach them about puberty. Be explicit, in fact. Teach them about dating, the dangers of illicit relationships, how man meets woman, right, in life, about pornography and the haram and why it's haram, instead of yelling and screaming at them. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, they're going to love you for that, inshallah. Um, inshallah, on marriage, clearly talk to them about marriage, model that behavior in front of them. I wanted to leave, inshallah, with a few pointers, and inshallah, we'll wrap. Daily programming with your children. First, think well of your children. No matter what their situation is, in your heart, think that your child is a good child. If they're struggling, think of their future. Think of them, inshallah, improving. If you hold negative thoughts about your child, perhaps you've rendered them to failure. Allah looks at your heart and your thoughts and opinion of your children, brothers and sisters. Never think my child is a failure. They're not going to improve. No, 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 no. No matter how much of a struggle they're in, still think Allah can change them. Even if I'm a bad, like not a good parent, I've struggled, it's okay. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. My child, I'll still have a good opinion of them. I'll still plant my seeds. And even if they didn't improve in my life, I'm planting the seeds. Inshallah, Allah will take care of them after I die. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, Allah will not fail you. Number 2, dialogue with your child as a friend. Number 3, be expressive of your feelings of love and affection. Say, I love you several times a day. I appreciate you. Teach them the language of love and express it verbally and physically. Praise them for their conduct, as we said before, for their qualities. Make them feel good about themselves. Praise their features, their eyes, their hair, but also the intrinsic things, their hearts and their souls. Have fun with your children. Spend time with them. Activities, even if 5 minutes, daily or every other day, but spend time with them. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, you'll build that bond, inshallah. Number 7, at bedtime, tell them, I was really happy to see you do this give them that positive feedback at bedtime to instill those values. Have dinner with them, with your spouse and your children, and dialogue with them without devices. Number 9, sit in a quiet place and tell your child, tell me anything you want to tell me, without interruptions, without questions. Wallahi, the child again will learn to open up with you. Express love physically by kisses, lots of hugs, lots of patting on the back, placing your hands on their heads. Brothers and sisters, Rasulullah used to get up for Fatima, kiss her on her forehead every time she showed up in the room. Hug her, kiss her on her forehead, and sit her in his place. That's Rasulullah expressing love physically. Always say to your child, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being in my life. And number 12, see that slide on is teaching Islam, and do these things daily. Salah, Quran, dhikr, talking about Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah, brothers and sisters, last thing is I want to say Allah Azza wa Jal promises the believers, inshallah, that's it, we're done, that those who have faith, and this is in Surah At-Tur, and their children follow them in faith. This is an assurance for everybody, so that if you're stressed out, if you feel like, oh, my children are in trouble, I didn't do what I'm supposed to do, Allah promises you this. This is a glad tidings for all the believers. For those who have faith and their children follow them in faith, even though they're not as good as their parents, they just had faith. Allah says, don't worry, I'm going to join you with your children in Jannah. Why? Because Allah is merciful. So just plant the seeds, brothers and sisters. Wallahi, I tell parents, no matter how much your children are struggling, don't worry. Have faith and trust in Allah's mercy. Pick yourself up. Apologize to your child if you have to. Don't cry day and night. Have trust in Allah. Still try with your child. Even if they're rejecting you, they turned away from you because you've not been there for them, still try with them. Be loving. Be loving, brothers and sisters. Show up in their lives. take them out, keep trying, make dua for them, but trust in Allah. Even if they had some faith, Allah says in this verse, Allah will join you with them. Bi'idhnillah. And if your children are better than you, they're going to push you up in Jannah. What's a better thing to think about than this promise of Allah Azza wa Jal, so that we can keep going, inshallah, so that we can pick ourselves up, inshallah. Hope, 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 no matter where we are in life. So finally, du'as, du'as, du'as in Surah Al-Furqan. Please memorize this dua. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. O Allah, grant us from our spouses and our children contentment, bliss, serenity for our eyes, our hearts, and make us among the leaders of the righteous. Imagine if you ask Allah daily for this. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, Allah will not only hear you and fulfill your dua, Allah will steer you in the right direction if you're humble and really want to get better. But it demands humility from the parents, inshallah. We're here for each other, brothers and sisters. We need each other in this journey, but remember, Allah is with us. We have a responsibility. Yes, it's a tough responsibility, but with responsibility comes honor as well. Comes an opportunity to influence our children, to equip them. They really need us, brothers and sisters. We need to show up in their lives and be those resilient, loving, but also demanding parents, so that our children can get to, inshallah, learn what they need to learn, so that when we leave them on this earth, they can, inshallah, make it, inshallah, and be well, bi'idhnillah. And with that, inshallah, I end.